think it'll work?
Yeah.
You approved it, didn't you? Did you sign off on it?
No.
Ollie, did you sign off on it? He said, yep. Let's do it. Hey, Nate with Rusty Roller, back again. Steering column, firewall, brake and gas pedal. Let's get into it. So here's where we're at with the firewall. Steering column needs to come up even higher than that. I've already cut a section out of that firewall. There's the steering shaft. Obviously needs to go in here, but that's about as deep as it goes in there. And that's about 2.5 inches here, and I'm barely touching. So it needs to come up higher, and it also needs to come out this way about 2 inches, 2.5 inches probably. So I can't make this firewall work. What I did was, I cut this chunk out of the firewall in the Dakota. That's about where it's going to be, but this piece is too wide. It's going to get into this over here, which is where I think the inner fender well is pulled onto. I already got rid of my hinge here. I'm going to lose that, the part with the spring on it. I'm not too worried about it. Figure something out later. So since it's too wide, I'm going to cut here, maybe there. I might cut there and get rid of this hole too. So that's where I'm at on that. My brain hurts right now. That's roughly what I'm going to cut out of the firewall. This original steel is 16 gauge steel in this firewall. So all I got is 18 gauge, and I started worrying about it. But then I looked at the Dakota firewall. All this that's not reinforced like this, all this is 20 gauge. So I ain't too worried about it. We got a lot going on here. So I cut out way more than I was supposed to. Someone miscalculated. I don't know who that was. Take the piece I cut out, cut that down, and then kind of works out that I did cut too much out, because then I could just flow over here instead of just being a goofy, straight, perfect box. So it kind of flows into it. This side here, pretty tight. I'm going to have to cut this hood hinge off, and then I'm going to cut most of this out. This piece here is for the bulkhead. This bulkhead going through the firewall. So I cut that out of the old firewall. Weld it back on somewhere around here, this general vicinity. And then I'll continue this firewall just over here to the edge here. I took the rest of the hinge off. I don't know, so I guess it'll work. Well, it is about lunchtime. Delicious. So that took a retardedly stupid amount of time to do. It's pretty much finished now, though. So basically I had to extend the firewall about 4 inches out. Right now, I guess I'm going to put everything back together. I got to figure out how to support the steering wheel up here. So I'm going to put everything back together and figure that out. Probably have to make some brackets or something to go in there. We'll see. All right, so up underneath the dash, we got the original bracket from the Dakota. This here. So I'm going to go ahead and cut those off to make room for the original international bracket, because it's not sitting down flat back there. So So cut those off. Probably weld some steel, some flat steel from there to there on each side of this. So then it'll be supported. And it just bolts up to the steering column here. It originally bolted on the side of this big brake pedal assembly, but doesn't quite line up anymore. The steering column is angled up more than it was in the Dakota, which is fine. I mean, I have to do that for leg clearance. That's all right. So I'll get to cutting on that and welding. Then we'll be ready to party. So I'm just going to use the brackets I just cut off. But I'm going to have to bend it into a 90 degree. I'll cut that little triangle out so it'll bend. I have to cut that off because it won't fit on the bracket. Same way with the other side. Once I get that cut off and the 90 bent, then I'll put it back up in there and see how much I have to trim off of this side. Might as well use what you got. So here's the bracket for the steering column. I know it looks like a cobbled together piece of shit, and that's probably because it is. No, it's not too bad. Looks pretty solid. I had to put these little gussets here in the end because it was just open and it was flexing a little too much. So I wanted to stiffen that up a little bit. I don't know, don't look too bad. It works. It's not coming apart. That's all that matters. Still a little too flexy. Gonna have to pull it out again. Beefy. Fully boxed, 3/16 plate, plus more gussets on the other end too. So there's no way that's gonna flex now. I didn't even fully weld it. I didn't see really the point of fully welding it. So let's go stick it back in. Then I got another conundrum. I don't know if I'm gonna use the old gauges from the Dakota or possibly get the original international gauges working and somehow get them to work with all the Dakota stuff, or just buy new old school looking gauges. The good thing about the Dakota dash would be just plug and play. Basically, I mean, I'd have to cut out the dash bigger, which I really don't want to do, but I will if I have to. Cut out the dash bigger and just plug in the gauges and boom, ready to go. But they're notorious for not being accurate, and the coolant gauge didn't work anyway. I don't know what was up with that. Never looked into it. And it's going to look kind of out of place. I mean, it's a 48 International. That's not going to look quite right. But it'd be so easy. Or if I go new gauges that look old, well, then I could just place them right in here. I wouldn't have to cut up the dash, but I would have to sort through a bunch of wires and all that, which is a pain in the ass. And also have to match the ohms from the fuel sending unit to the gauge. Somehow you got to match that. That's a pain in the ass. So I don't know which way I'm going to go yet. I guess let me know in the comments what you think. What you think I should do. I don't know. I'm kind of 50-50 on each one. The ease of the Dakota gauges and inaccuracy and not looking right compared to looking right. I don't have to cut up the dash, but I have to mess with all the wires for new gauges. I don't know. Let me know in the comments. Man, it must really be quitting time now. Still alive? Steering column is in. Pedals are in. Throttle's hooked up. New brake booster. Got a master cylinder for it too. The throttle cable's hooked up. Huge step forward. Don't let that voice in your head stop you from creating something. Just do it. Just do it. So that's about it. Please like and subscribe. Hope you got something out of it. See ya.